The Su-57 program, once envisioned as a flagship achievement for Russian aerospace development, is now widely viewed by critics as a failed experiment, one that exposes the underlying decay in Russia's defense industrial ecosystem. Promoted aggressively as Russia's answer to next-generation air dominance, the aircraft has consistently fallen short of every key goal set for it over more than 2 decades of development. As of 2025, the Su-57 remains far from mass deployment, with technical performance well below the standards expected of a fifth-generation combat aircraft. The origin of the program dates back to the early 2000s, when Russia announced its intent to develop a stealth fighter that could not only replace aging Soviet-era designs but also compete with Western aviation technology. Over the years, Russian officials made bold declarations about stealth capabilities, integrated avionics, artificial intelligence support, and supermaneuverability. However, the reality behind those claims never aligned with the rhetoric. The gap between promised capability and demonstrated performance widened steadily with each passing year, and by now has become glaringly obvious to observers both inside and outside Russia. One of the clearest indicators of failure is the pace of production. Despite over 20 years of development, only a small number of Su-57 airframes have been produced, and even fewer are in anything resembling combat-ready condition. There have been repeated announcements of serial production starting, only to be followed by delays, missed deadlines, and revisions. The scale of manufacturing remains marginal, reflecting serious limitations in Russia's industrial infrastructure. These limitations are not simply the result of underfunding or inefficiency, they are systemic and embedded in the structure of Russia's defense sector. The country has proven incapable of maintaining a stable production pipeline for a complex weapons platform that demands high-precision engineering, quality assurance, and consistent access to advanced components. A central factor behind this stagnation is technological dependency. The Su-57 requires sophisticated electronics, radar systems, and data processors, components that Russia cannot produce at scale domestically. For many years, these were sourced from foreign suppliers. That access has now been largely cut off due to geopolitical isolation and comprehensive international sanctions. This has forced the program to rely on outdated or improvised technology that undermines core capabilities. The radar systems lack reliability, the sensors are underperforming, and the data integration across subsystems is inefficient. In a platform that is supposed to embody fifth-generation standards, these shortcomings are disqualifying. The aircraft's most touted feature, stealth, is also widely considered inadequate by critical observers. Stealth capability is not simply about shaping, it involves advanced materials, precise manufacturing tolerances, radar-absorbent coatings, and careful heat management. None of these have been executed competently in the Su-57. Numerous technical evaluations, though constrained by the lack of open-source technical data, have consistently raised doubts about the aircraft's radar signature and survivability in contested airspace. The use of engines not designed for stealth, the visible structural inconsistencies, and the lack of high-fidelity stealth coatings all suggest that the aircraft is fundamentally unfit for the role it was intended to play. These are not marginal issues, they are core design failures that compromise the jet's ability to operate in environments where stealth is not just beneficial, but necessary. In the broader context of Russia's military posture, the Su-57's failure reflects an unhealthy obsession with image management over substance. Instead of acknowledging the program's deficiencies and addressing them systematically, the Russian leadership has continued to push misleading narratives about the aircraft's performance, progress, and deployment. The reality is that the aircraft has played no decisive role in any conflict, and has barely appeared in practical use. Analysts argue this is intentional. Exposing the Su-57 to real-world combat would risk revealing its vulnerabilities and damaging Russia's carefully constructed illusions of technological parity with major powers. By keeping the aircraft largely on display and out of combat, the state avoids the political fallout of a potential public embarrassment. Furthermore, the Su-57 has failed to generate meaningful international interest. One of the key justifications for its development was to attract foreign buyers and secure defense export contracts that could subsidize further development. That has not materialized. Initial international partners have abandoned cooperation, citing concerns over transparency, technological gaps, and the unreliability of the Russian defense establishment. Potential buyers have passed on the opportunity to engage, unwilling to invest in an unproven and politically risky project. This lack of foreign investment has left the program isolated, underfunded, and dependent on an increasingly strained domestic budget. Inside Russia, the program has drained significant public funds with minimal return. Billions of rubles have been spent on what amounts to a political vanity project, a jet that looks impressive on static display but offers little to no strategic advantage. The disconnect between investment and outcome is striking and indicative of a broader pattern within Russia's state-led technological projects: unrealistic planning, inflated public claims, misallocated funding, and ultimately disappointing results. These projects are often kept alive not because they are useful, but because they serve a symbolic function in maintaining the illusion of national strength. Compounding these issues is the endemic corruption that has plagued the Russian defense procurement system. Contractors routinely falsify progress reports, inflate costs, and divert funds. The Su-57 has not been immune to this environment. Delays in subsystem development, such as the engines and avionics, have been tied not just to technical difficulties, but to internal mismanagement and fraud. Instead of being a streamlined, well-coordinated project, the Su-57 development has been fragmented, disorganized, and riddled with inefficiencies that are unlikely to be resolved under current political and institutional conditions. The wider implication of the Su-57's failure is that Russia lacks the capacity to independently sustain complex, high-tech military programs in the modern era. Despite lofty ambitions, the country does not possess the industrial depth, financial stability, or international cooperation necessary to execute a project of this scale successfully. Attempts to portray the Su-57 as a serious strategic platform do not withstand scrutiny when compared to its actual production figures, limited deployments, and persistent developmental setbacks. What remains is not a formidable fighter jet, but a hollow symbol, a reminder of how a state can waste vast resources in pursuit of prestige over performance. The Su-57 is seen by critics as a failed endeavor born out of a system that values perception over results. It exists today more as a narrative device than an actual tool of military power. It reflects the shortcomings of a centralized, unaccountable defense industry locked in a cycle of overpromising, under-delivering, and denying failure. The aircraft's limited capabilities, combined with its cost and ongoing delays, have made it a clear example of how the pursuit of technological status without the structural means to support it leads to stagnation and failure.